Whether the checks have dried up, the goodie bags have stopped, or the access has been withdrawn, it seems that Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, is no longer immune to the savaging that it rightly deserves from critics. Indeed, as evidenced by the Mandalorian and Grogu reviews, the critics have sharpened their claws. It seems that whatever hold Disney had over them back then is now gone, and the critics are letting us know it. But is The Mandalorian and Grogu really all that bad? I went to go and see it with low expectations, as I have for all Disney Star Wars ever since The Last Jedi, and found out for myself. First of all, one thing needs to be said. The Mandalorian and Grogu is nothing more than a truncated season of the TV show. There is little here either in spectacle, budget, or even really stakes to indicate that this is anything more than just a continuation of the series that we have been given. A series which I thought started off promisingly and then went to hell. Season 1, I really quite enjoyed. Mando was kicking ass. I would have quite happily had an entire season of just doing bounties. Bring in the green gobshite at the end of the season. It would have been nice to see Mando unshackled and able to do his thing. Season 2, too many cameos. Luke Skywalker at the end. Season 3, don't talk about it. And now, obviously, we have the movie. And the movie actually functions as a fairly good Season 4. One thing that I really enjoyed about the film is that in this movie, Mando gets to kick ass. He has quite clearly reclaimed his balls from Bo-Katan and decided to become an actual Mandalorian again. He is taking out stormtroopers and droids left and right. He hasn't been this deadly since those first few episodes way back in Season 1. In fact, he's almost like a one-man army, which unfortunately makes it hard to buy when he gets taken out by a simple trap. Indeed, one of the most obvious traps you'll ever see. But as far as the action goes, whilst the direction could be a little bit better and it could be a little bit easier to see, particularly some of the CGI being pretty patchy, Mando gets to do his thing. Of course, Grogu is still there and you need something for the women and the children to fawn over, and he's doing his thing, being food obsessed, gaga, goo goo, whatever. But really, the audience that Disney is trying to reach for is kids. They're what Grogu is aimed at. The toy adverts before the movie made that quite apparent. And unfortunately, I think they're the audience that just doesn't give a shit about Star Wars anymore. Are wine mums going to be enough to get this past the break-even point at the cinema? I doubt it. Broadly, the plot of this film is that the Mandalorian is working through a deck of cards that the Alliance has, taking out Imperial characters one at a time. You would think there'd be some response from the Empire for this, but it appears not. Rather, the foe, or at least the antagonist this time round, is the Hutts, and the plot revolves around Mando rescuing Rotter the Hutt, who was originally in the first animated Clone Wars film that was equally forgettable. The problem here is that the Hutts have always been a bunch of sedentary slugs, I suppose, that just talk in an alien language, and they need to change that here, so what they do is they give them English voices, and for some reason, Rotter is jacked like Alan Richardson. It doesn't work. It just takes away any sense of the alien nature of Star Wars. Rotter's voice is just like a dude bro. It really is a little bit weird. Add to the fact that you've got some horrific pacing issues. The film literally grinds to a halt when the Mandalorian stops beating up bad guys and Grogu kind of takes over. But there's probably just about enough here to make it worth a watch, at least at the streaming level. Certainly wouldn't say there's anything here to go and see at the cinema. One of the problems is that it just has too much in common with the TV show. It does just feel like an extension. It's a bit like Star Trek Generations, where we got this film, this supposed feature film for the Next Generation crew, but the ship's still the same. The uniforms are largely the same. Not enough had changed, and it just felt like an extended episode of the TV series. This has nearly exactly the same problem. They give Ando a new Razor Crest, and that doesn't help with the familiarity and the feeling that we've just kind of seen all this before. Overall, I honestly don't think that The Mandalorian and Grogu is a terrible movie. It's not a good movie, but I've seen much worse Star Wars. I'm looking at you, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, The Acolyte. It's better than all of those, I think I have to say. It's hurt by a vastly restricted budget as Disney desperately tries to make a movie profitable, a lack of stakes, and it doesn't feel important. And as much as I detest The Last Jedi, there are bits of The Last Jedi that will stick with you. Is it Cry, the Planet of the Salt? Kind of that, that scene will stick with you. The hyperspace suicidal ram, that will stick with you. Those were directorially impressive set pieces, even if the film itself was pretty awful. This just doesn't really have anything that's going to live in the memory. In fact, it's already fading. There's very little to get hold of. There's very little to grip onto. It doesn't help that there's a complete lack of development for any of the characters. At the end of this, Mandalorian, nearly the same. Grogu is the same. There's no... It's a side quest. It's embarrassingly low stakes, low effort movie making. But watching Mando run around, being a Mandalorian, what we should have got from Boba Fett, basically, I can't lie, I was entertained. But myself and the rest of the cinema, which amounted to about 15 people, absolutely felt our attention wandering around that kind of second act, 2/3 point. You could see it in the entire audience. Phones were being picked up. It just the film just slams to a halt. No spoilers, but basically it's very hard to maintain the momentum for a movie when all you've got is a non-speaking green 2-foot puppet or animatronic or whatever on the screen. And that's what happens in this film, unfortunately. But it's not awful. It's not awful. Would I watch it again? Hell yeah. I wouldn't rush out to go and see it again, but if this popped up on streaming, I'd watch it and then sort of glaze out during the boring bits. So yeah, I think that this is just one of those ones that people just are slamming it. I've seen much, much worse Star Wars than this. This is just an easy target. That's about it, really. I've been so disappointed by Star Wars, so jaded by Star Wars, that I was expecting absolute dog shit. And I didn't get absolute dog shit. I was like, hey, Mando's got his balls back. There's some action here. This reminds me of the first season in places when he's going out and doing his bounties. But then he gets hamstrung by the little gooseberry and he goes, and I just go, you're just stopping the Mandalorian from being what he needs to be. But this is the most masculine that Star Wars has been for a long time. There was a great deep reference that I loved. If you've read Splinters of the Mind's Eye, the novel by Alan Dean Foster, that was supposed to be a sequel to the original Star Wars, then I think that you are, I think you're going to spot that one. It's a very deep cut reference. So yeah, overall, I think this is probably the second best season of The Mandalorian. I'm going to call it. It's just Mando and Grogu doing their thing, Mando mostly doing his thing, and although it's got a lot of problems, pacing, some really patchy CGI, some terrible writing decisions, I'll give this away because it's at the start. The Mando's attacking an Imperial base, and they sound the alarm. They're like, call for reinforcements, call for reinforcements. The alarm's blaring, and the reinforcements are on the way, but they've got a little mouse droid with a siren on top of it. Why? Everybody can hear the alarm. Well, the reason's very simple. We need something for Grogu to do. We need him to be able to hold it and take it part of the Force. There's a lot of things like that happen in this film that are just dumb. But I've seen worse films and I've seen worse Star Wars. And you know what? I stick by that. I'd give this like a 5 out of 10 or whatever. Completely, totally average on the level of something like Solo. A million miles away from the good Star Wars, but a refreshing improvement on some of the absolute dross that we have been presented. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. I have been Critical, and I'll be back with another video soon.